welcome back to the Chronic Chronicles. I'm your host, Lexi Halloran, and I'm pumped, guys. I'm pumped. I think I want to do a little weekly report with you guys. I haven't done one in a while, but okay, so weekly report stands for reading, eating, playing, obsessing, recommending, treating. So reading. Right now, I am currently reading. Let's see what I'm reading. I'm actually not reading it. I'm listening to it, but it's the same thing in my head. I know that's a big controversy. A lot of people say that like you're not actually reading it, you're listening to it, but I am reading it, okay? I'm on book 3 of the Throne of Glass series. I'm literally 2 minutes in. I'm 2 minutes in. I'm not gonna lie, the Throne of Glass series, the first book was a little bit slow for me. It was a little bit hard for me to get into it, but the second book I really enjoyed, and I'm not the type of person that like doesn't finish a book. I kind of have to finish no matter what, even if I don't like it. So when I'm reading a series, like I'm locked in. At this point, like I will be finishing this series. I actually don't know if I've ever not finished a book. Either way. So I'm on book 3 of Throne of Glass and I'm really loving it. I already read Crescent City, that series, and I read the ACOTAR series. If anyone has like another series from a different author that I guess like is similar to Sarah J. Maas, let me know because I'm interested in like other series as well after I finish this series. Eating, I've just been so basic. Like I've been getting basically like mini charcuterie boards or like adult Lunchables, and I've been eating those. And we've also been trying to do low calorie, cutting out like some of the inflammatory foods. So basically like cutting out processed foods as much as I can, but honestly, like I'm on a budget for things too, which makes it a little bit harder. So we'll see. I definitely do want to go full force into an anti-inflammatory diet, but like I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I'm scared. It is already hard for me to find meals to make without restrictions and then like putting restrictions into it. Like I'm nervous about doing that, but I've heard a lot of really good things about the anti-inflammatory autoimmune protocol diet. So yeah, if anyone has done it and has like recipes, that's my biggest thing is that I need recipes and I don't know, does anyone know of like a cookbook? Does anyone know of a cookbook for anti-inflammatory? Because then I think I could do it. But it's really just like if I'm gonna do this, I need to make sure that I have enough recipes to actually do it, which has been a task in itself. Playing. Honestly, I haven't really been playing much. I think I said in my last report that my boyfriend and I were playing golf. I mean, he's definitely playing golf, but I have been trying to go to the driving range with him. Schedules have been hard. We've had a really busy summer, but I guess that's my playing, going to the driving range. I would love to find like a girlfriend to go with me. Obsessing. I'm obsessing over Poppy, specifically the cherry limeade flavor. Okay, recommending. I'm recommending the Some Days hot spell. So this is like what it looks like. And it's magnesium ginger bath oil. What else is in this? Magnesium chloride, distilled water, jojoba, seed oil, ginger, root oil, and eucalyptus leaf oil. I mean, like those are pretty good ingredients. And it says that you're supposed to shake well and then add 1 teaspoon to a hot bath. 1 teaspoon, and this is 80 milliliters. So like this lasts a long time. I've already used this like quite a few times, and it doesn't even look like I've used any of it because 1 teaspoon is like such a small amount. Literally love this. As somebody with chronic pain, endometriosis, I live by baths to the point that my boyfriend and I were looking for a new apartment, and my one stipulation is it must have a bathtub. So I take a lot of baths, and this has been like a game changer. Before I had this, I would use Epsom salt, which I do still stand by. I love Epsom salt, but this, it's like a treat. It's like a reward. Oh my God, and it smells so good. I don't know. It takes it up a notch. I really do think that the magnesium helps a lot with the cramping. I love it. So definitely recommending Hot Spell some days. Some days also has like a lot of other products. I really love their cramp cream as well. And then I also have their heating pad. Honestly, all of their items have really good clean ingredients and like they don't have like a bunch of random things in them that are like fillers. I love it. I love this. Definitely recommending. If you do want to head over to Some Days, you can use code Chronic Chronicles for 15% off. That's all I'm saying. I stand by it. Okay, treating. I have been treating myself to a little bit of crumble cookie. Okay, just a little bit, just a little baby, little bit of crumble cookie. They have these like mini, I think, what are they called? They're called like the mini series or something. I don't get it that often, but when I want a treat, like that's what I get. And my boyfriend absolutely hates crumble cookie. Like he does not think they're good at all. He's not the type of person that likes like gooey or doughy things. Like I love cookie dough. I love brownie batter. I love like raw things like that. So crumble cookie is like right up my alley. He likes like crispy, crunchy cookies. Like he does not like crumble at all. So they're all for me. And they're also kind of expensive, but like if you're only getting them once in a while, it's worth it. They're also very high calorie and definitely not good for you at all. You know what? You know what's worse for you? You know what's worse for you is stressing about how bad something is for you, okay? Cortisol. I guess that's it. That's my weekly report. Yeah, I just felt like I've been doing a lot of interview podcasts, and I definitely have. All of the interviews are so insightful, and I love doing all of them. But I also felt like I wanted to connect with you guys a little bit, and I wanted to let you know like what's going on in my life. Recently, we've been doing a lot of travel. So yeah, it's a little bit on me. And this week's guest, I'm super excited for. She is the owner of a newer company. She has a waiting list and she's doing some like testing. It's called SAHA. It essentially will work to match people up with like a provider of some sort. As we get into the episode, she'll explain it a lot more, but I wanted to do today's episode as a resource for people with chronic pain or chronic conditions or people that are looking for providers and have had a really hard time finding somebody that like checks all of your boxes. This guest today walks through like her experience with having chronic pain, potentially Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and a couple of other things like really bad periods, and how all of those experiences kind of pushed her towards creating Saha and, you know, like what a resource it could be for our community. So without further ado, we will get into the episode. And thank you guys so much for continuing to support the podcast. Love you all. Okay. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So hi, I'm Alenka. I forgot we were recording. I'm Canadian originally. I'm living in Los Angeles right now. I've been in the corporate work environment for almost 15 years, working on different types of software products. I love the outdoors. I love food. Oh my goodness. I
Mhm.
like when I find really cool food things, I don't stop talking about them. We can talk about the tahini black dark chocolate, like salted. Oh, it is so good.
Wait, that sounds really good.
It is amazing. Like, one of my coworkers, I brought it to like a breakfast thing, and he's like, "Oh, this is so delicious!" And he's like a fitness freak, and he's like, I bought it for my like neighbors and my wife and all of these people." Anyways, I love like cool things and I get obsessed with it. I'm currently obsessed with these. They're
Ooh.
it's like a non-alcoholic pre and probiotic, and it's
Hmm.
delicious. So yeah, this is a little bit about me that's a little more fun than like the pain in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you from in Canada?
I grew up in BC, uh,
Okay.
just in Abbotsford, just north of the border.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, so I'm currently living like greater Seattle area, so I really want to go to Vancouver this summer. It's
nice.
like on my bucket list to go to. Okay, and then were you were in software
Mhm.
engineering, is that right? Or just software?
No, so I do more of like the business side. So someone's
Okay.
like either I have the cool idea or someone has the cool idea, and then I
Hmm.
work within like with the engineers and figure out like what is realistic, what is not realistic, and then we kind of put together a plan and build it out into something. And then when we're building it, we test it, get a bunch of feedback, we launch it, we test it, we get a bunch of feedback, and then like
Mm-hmm.
iterate on it. So it's called product is like my role. Uh,
Oh,
but like
okay.
that is the explanation of like what I do. And I obviously work with more than the engineers. It's like working with every facet of the organization to make something happen.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That is like, I know pretty much nothing about that. So when people say software, I'm like, okay, like computers? Okay. So is that makes a lot of sense now where you got to your business. So can you tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about your company?
Yeah. So I think we'll get into how it came about in terms of my
Mm-hmm.
story in a second. But so the my company that I founded earlier this year and I'm currently working on building out, which is
Yeah.
super exciting, is a it's for people who have not found answers in conventional medicine
Mm-hmm.
and matching them up with vetted professionals based on shared value and the need that the person is looking for today. So like if you kind of think of it in words that make or more tangible, if you will, you can book a vacation rental where you pick certain days, you have certain filters, certain locations, you instant book, you want refunds, like refundable, etc.
Yeah.
Why can't we do something equivalent with our health? Right? Like, why couldn't you look for somebody who's like a specialist in endo, who helps specifically with diet, who is either local or virtual, who has availability? Like, you can already see their availability and their times with times that work for you, that have worldviews that are similar to yours. Like, why can't we do that today? Like, to me, it just seems so like an obvious empty space in the market, like that should exist.
Yeah. No, I 1000% agree. So, especially like moving, I just moved it, well, not just, but I moved to the Seattle area about a year ago, and it has been so hard to find a doctor. And especially like for me, I'm looking for an endometriosis specialist, but then I'm also looking for like a primary care doctor. It just gets really hard. And then insurance is another thing, and trying to figure out like if these physicians kind of have more experience. And like for me in particular, I'm looking for somebody who focuses like a primary care doctor that focuses on women's health and like women's hormones,
Mhm.
which is kind of difficult when you like Google those keywords. It just comes up with like 1,000 things. And I'm like, I don't know. And then you'd get all overwhelmed. And so, yeah, I really do think that you're what is missing in that field.
Yeah,
So,
and I mean, we're not going to do primary care doctors and like the
mhm.
traditional because it insurance and like it's very very messy and complicated, and we want to start
Yeah.
small and tangible. So, but like the idea can expand out to that theoretically eventually, right? Yeah, no, I feel you. I my primary care I found by accident, and like don't love, don't hate, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty much where I am right now as well. Like I found somebody, I can't remember what, I'll have to look what website actually found it. But yeah, it again, don't love, don't hate. And honestly, my insurance only covers like half of it anyway. So I'm like, I don't really know what I did wrong in this search, but it just gets really confusing, especially when you have a chronic illness and you're at the doctor's all the time. You're like, well, now I'm paying a lot out of pocket and I don't really know why. That's a whole nother thing. But
Oh, I have so many words for that, and that's part of the reason why like I'm gonna tangentially like go. So
hmm
the way insurance works, so I have a friend who's a psychiatrist up in British Columbia.
hmm
And so I pulled up when I was going through my burnout, the psychiatrist that I saw and like the billing that I had access to. And she's like, they billed the insurance like 2, 3 times the amount what insurance actually paid. And then I had a copay on top of it. But in total,
Oh,
what that psychiatrist made in California was less than British Columbia in Canada. And she was like, it's not worth it for her to come, she's dual citizen, for her
yeah.
like practice in the States unless she was taking on private clients, which blows my mind.
Yeah. The whole thing gets so confusing. It really does. And I've tried to look into it and understand it. I worked in healthcare and I still didn't understand it. I'm like, I don't know. It gets very confusing. And then it's different in every state as well. And it's different on, like you can have so many different types of insurance. It's very, very confusing. But yeah, that would be interesting if long-term SAHA kind of incorporated insurance things, but yeah, I feel like that's a task in itself. So
Yeah, it's like it's a whole thing. ZocDoc works pretty well in California. I don't
I
know if
think that is what, yeah, I think that's the website that I ended up using.
you,
But like even then, it's just
not great,
it's
honestly.
not that great.
No.
So what key features are you planning on having in this?
Yeah, so we want to start. So kind of like if we take like a broader, I'm
Hmm.
gonna take a step back to explain. Because
Yeah.
like I like to. I've been told I jump like in my thinking and I don't explain things. I'm like, oh, sorry. Like so I try to like be as clear as possible. But so when we're running a wait list right now, and the goal of the
Hmm.
wait list is to be able to gauge interest and also get feedback, right? And part of that feedback is getting an understanding. So we're going to be running focus groups to get an understanding of
Hmm.
like, is this easy to use? Is this like useful for you? Like, do you understand how, because when you get to a website and you don't know where to start, like that's not helpful for anyone. So even though I'm doing my best to make it as clear as possible with my designer, you need to make it so that it starts there, but then it also extends to like what are the issues that people are interested in covering, what are the types of providers, et cetera. And so the goal is to launch with a subset of providers and like a limited number of providers for very targeted conditions, uh,
Okay.
kind of, and then test it out and see how it does, like kind of a mini launch. And then as that fleshes out and those people get booked out, then we'll add like another mini cohort and target based on a separate set of conditions. And so what that would look like, for example, maybe we
Hmm.
talk about like back and neck pain, right? Those are like pretty common things that most people
Yeah.
have some sort of. And so you would go in there and you would say like, this is my symptom, uh, and like these are filters, right? So imagine filters you've used before. These are my symptoms. This is where I'm at. Like maybe you just need relief. Maybe you just need to not be in pain today, or maybe you know what the root cause is and you don't know what to do about it, or maybe you know what to do about it but you need motivation. Like me in physical therapy, like we're not friends when I'm responsible for doing it, right? So like, and we have this like framework that it like kind of walks you through the different steps. And
Hmm.
what'll happen is we'll have providers that will say, hey, like I help people, give them immediate relief, or I help people motivate them, or many or multiple parts of that. And then
Okay.
we match you based on that in addition to worldview. So like, because
Got it.
everybody has different things that they're
Hmm.
looking for as well. So it's a mix and match kind of situation. But you need a decent amount of numbers to make that work for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so it would be mostly based off of like you go in there and you put in what condition or symptoms you have and like kind of what you're looking for, and then it'll match you. Or are you thinking like match you with a couple of different people or like one? Or do you
Yeah.
get to like
So
pick?
yeah, the goal would be to give you some choice, right? So I'm
Hmm.
thinking about 5 to 7
Yeah.
providers, and so you get to pick like if it's in, is it virtual, is it like on site at an office, someone coming to your home, right? Like
Yeah.
those are really like for some people they don't want to go into like a public space, or and
Hmm.
like I have been surprised how affordable some at home masseuses can be. Did not know this.
Huh. Yeah,
Some,
it sounds like a luxury. So,
right? Yeah, or like I have a physical therapist that comes over for $60 an hour. I'm like that is worth it if I'm paying $20 for copay anyways. Like,
yeah.
plus the drive, plus
Wow.
whatever. Like,
I
so
did
like
not know this.
you can find, I mean, you got to find them, right? And this is
Hmm.
the whole point, and this is kind of the point of SAHA for me is like when you find these people, we are like, and I'm sure you have these people in your life, you are their biggest fan and you tell everybody about them. Like
Yeah.
all of my friends know about my acupuncturist and some are seeing her, right? But like, how do you find them? How
Yeah.
do you get to them? And so the goal of this is to be like, hey, like there'll be limited symptoms initially, right? And then they'll kind of
Hmm.
widen, but it'll say like these are your options based on your input. And it's not even like, and you can search just by a specific modality. Like you're like, hey, I want a massage or I want a physical therapist or whatever. You can search by that. And good for you if you know that's what you need. But most of us are like, I am lost. I don't know what I need. I'm sick of
Yeah.
it. And so this is the goal is for people who are like, I have no idea what I need. Give me some options.
Okay. I love that. I'm excited. I'm excited to yeah, because sometimes you don't know what you need and you're kind of like, okay, I need somebody to give me thoughts on what would make me feel better. So I
Yeah.
think that's a really good idea. Now, I know that you have gone through like you said, you do physical therapy. So what kind of chronic do you have a chronic condition or did you have an injury which resulted in now maybe chronic pain?
Um, well, I learned that I have a chronic condition that I didn't know about until I started digging into the chronic injury.
Okay. Okay.
So I have hypermobility like I know that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't tested, EDS and all of that, but I don't have like
Yeah.
the other things. I'm very grateful for that, like the migraines and the stomach. I do have the lightheadedness, so but
Yeah. You
yeah.
know, a lot of I've also looked into EDS and it's the same thing with endometriosis for I have endometriosis and not all of the it's not like a you have to have all these symptoms and it's like clear cut and it seems like it's the same thing with EDS as
Mhm.
well. So obviously I'm not going to like promote self-diagnosing or anything like that.
Yeah.
But if you I didn't even know what it was until recently when I actually did an interview with somebody and I was like, "Oh, I had no idea what this was." And you're like saying things that I relate to. So,
I'm actually on the Elders Downloads website. They have this really cool, it's like a pie chart that shows what spectrum disorders look like. And so imagine if like all of the sides of the pie are like different types of or slices or different symptoms. So they
yeah.
say, like they explain with like EDS as a spectrum disorder that those slices of pie can be like mini or large, but like take up the same amount
Right.
of space. And so like a spectrum disorder isn't like everybody has the exact same thing, but
Yeah.
and to me that visualization really clicked in a way that nothing had before. I really liked it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so you
Oh,
think
sorry.
that potentially you have EDS, maybe you definitely have hypermobility, but
Definitely have hypermobility, but I haven't done the testing and nothing has
mhm.
like been so extreme enough for me to like need to be worried about that, right? Like let's deal with one problem at a time.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, yeah, I got one thing at a time. So like I've always been very like reasonably flexible considering the fact that I haven't like really taken an effort to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the first time I royally tore apart my ankle was 16, 17,
Ooh.
I can't remember, but
Mhm.
like, like balloon sized, all of that. And it happened like somewhat regularly. Like people who know me know that this has happened. I've torn the ligaments apart. I tore the ligaments so much so that the tendon I tore off once because like there
Oh
was
my God.
left there. That was the one I recently rebroke, which is a different story. But the other ankle, like this is like a both ankle situation. I was talking about it to someone this morning, and she's 5'8" and she's a size 10 feet. And she's like, I'm so jealous you have size 8.5 feet. I'm like, no, sweetie, I'm taller than you and my feet are smaller. That's a problem.
Yeah.
like, you know, like it should have bigger feet for my height. That would like,
Yeah. That would help maybe.
yeah, maybe like, bigger base for everything. And I
Mhm.
like move really fast and I don't pay attention to what I'm doing. So that doesn't help either because I'm like thinking in my head and I don't notice potholes and then I trip and
Yeah.
like it's just like and like I remember that the time I tripped in a pothole, I got to the doctor's office and my ankle was all of the colors of the rainbow the next day. Like all of them. And I was lucky to get an urgent care appointment because
Oh.
it was in Montreal and it was this whole thing. And they're like, oh, I don't know. I think I paid for that MRI out of pocket because
Mhm.
there are some benefits to American healthcare. I will say that. Uh, but this was up in Canada, and like I couldn't see an orthopedic surgeon for another 6 months. And by that time, like I didn't really have anyone to help me. And I remember actually feeling that ligament, like the end of it as it had been ripped off, like through my skin.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that was
Wow.
that was like 10 years ago. And like, little bits here and there, like spraining or whatever. And I always wanted to wear like cuter shoes. I stopped wearing heels after that incident. I will say that. Which made me sad. Like shoes a lot. And then through 2 years ago now. Yeah. Yeah. 2 years ago now, I stepped off a curb with my other foot and I admit it was just a different shaped curb that I wasn't used to, and I
Yeah.
calculated. I stepped and I tore it apart and I had a golf ball size swelling within like 10, 20 minutes as soon as I
Oh my
basically
Lord.
walked back a couple hundred feet. Yeah. Yeah. So, and that was fun because I went into urgent care and they're like, they were all shocked. They're like, here's a wheelchair, here's an ice pack. The ladies were very sweet. They're like, oh, it's not broken after the x-ray. I'm like, okay, cool. And the urgent care doctor's like, oh, it's just a sprain. He gave me like the lightest of the lightest braces. He's like, oh, it's
Uh,
fine. And I had already had an orthopedic surgeon because of a broken finger. Different story.
mhm.
That was just my own stupidity. That wasn't like, and so I booked a like appointment immediately, and he was like,
Mhm.
oh, it's bad. I'm like, I want an MRI. Like I had to advocate for myself and be like, I want an MRI. I do this too often. This is not okay. Because he was also like giving me kind of a
Mhm.
lighter weight. We get the MRI back. He's like, this is the worst you could do without breaking a bone. Like I tore I can't remember if it was one or two ligaments. I had tendonitis. I had smashed the bones together, so there's fragmentation between the bones and like bleeding up in the bones. Like, and it was like a balloon. Like, like if I didn't have it elevated all the time, it would swell. Like I
Yeah.
would drive for an hour or two in the car, and it was swollen. So
Oh my
then the
Lord.
like then I had to be off of it for a couple of months, like completely no weight on it.
Mhm.
But like if I hadn't have advocated for myself, I would have gotten a totally different course of treatment and it wouldn't have healed as well as it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Sorry, I totally dumped a lot on you.
No, you're totally fine. That sounds so painful too. I definitely, well, I guess I don't know. I've never torn a ligament I did tear a tendon in my hand, but that is another stupid story. But yeah, I feel like that pain would be really bad. I feel like it would almost be worse than breaking a bone, honestly.
Um, you know what, like the most screwed up, I have like so many four-letter words for this, but like the most
Hmm.
infuriating part of all of this is like I know the feeling of it. Like I know the feeling of injuring the soft tissue because I've done it so many times.
Hmm.
It doesn't hurt compared to, and you're gonna empathize with this, what my cramps used to be like. So,
Yeah.
like, it hurts in terms of like there's a swollen mass that's attached to
Hmm.
you and the weight of it. And yes, there is some pain associated, but what was so infuriating with me with every doctor is that like, what is the scale of your pain?
Yeah.
And it would be like maybe around a 5 or 6, like in the
Hmm.
like the immediate, but then the shock kicks in and all of that. But then like ongoing, it wasn't that bad, and it still isn't that bad
Yeah.
because my pain tolerance is so high. Like I wouldn't even take painkillers until the painkillers wouldn't work with cramps.
Yeah.
And then I would pass out from the pain because I was so exhausted from it. Like that's what I'm
Yeah.
like, that's my pain tolerance. That's what I'm used to. So when you ask me what this like, I get bruises all over my body all the time without remembering how I did it. Like I
Hmm.
don't have an average pain tolerance. So like it is the most useless gauge. And that's what they use for like recovery. When I go in and get checkups, he would be like, what's your
Yeah.
pain? And I'm like, it's not that bad. And that's not helpful. Anyway, sorry, I could
I
rant
know.
about this for
No,
days.
I 1000% agree with that. Like people that have chronic pain in general, like that pain scale is irrelevant. Like I don't know because typically I'm sitting like my one is probably a 5. So I don't know. For example, I broke my foot in college. I went to a kickboxing class and it sounds cool because it sounds like, oh, she broke her foot kickboxing. No, 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 no. It was a cardio kickboxing class. I did not kick anything. I wasn't kicking a bag. I just hit my foot on the ground in the wrong way and I shattered my foot somehow, like a bunch of stress fractures. Didn't even know I broke it. Like it didn't hurt in that
Mhm.
it hurt, but like I have endometriosis and I have chronic pain. Like it didn't hurt nearly as bad as like other things that I had been through. So in my past, like when I would go to the hospital for pain, it was like I'm in so much pain, I think I'm gonna die. Like I'm dragging myself on the ground, so I'm going to the hospital. But with that, the only reason I ended up going, I think I went to the urgent care, like not even the emergency room. I think like 2 weeks later because my whole foot was black and blue, and I was like, this looks like something's wrong, but it doesn't. Like I can walk on it. And I went in and got an X-ray, and he was like, "Oh my God, you have fractures everywhere." And I was like, "Oh," he's like, "You're walking on this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I don't know. I thought I like rolled my ankle. Yeah.
So
So
infuriating.
I was in a boot for a while, but so I totally get where you're coming from in that. Like, yes, those things probably do hurt, but I just have no gauge for it. Just as the same as like what you were saying.
Yeah, it's
I don't
just
know.
yeah, like it does hurt, and I'm sure it does hurt differently for different people, but like
Hmm.
it was more painful. Sorry, this might be too graphic, but like when I tore that tendon off the bone on the other ankle,
Mm-hmm.
So like, there's been like series, right? Because when you
Yeah.
hurt one, the other one gets tender anyways. So this
Yeah.
this was like when I moved to LA, so about 8 years ago.
Okay.
Um, I I missed a step again, and I tore the tendon right off the bone, right? Like there was a
Ugh.
chunk, like it showed up in the X-ray kind of thing. And I didn't. It was a Friday. I didn't get into the doctor until the Monday, but and I put it in a boot because like I knew something was off. But I remember like just cracking the because I crack my ankles all the time, right? To
Yeah.
sit it on my other one, but I like that was excruciating pain for like a second,
Yeah.
and then it went and then like it was fine. But like I drove 3 hours each way on the Sunday, so 2 days later to go see the like Super Bloom because priorities with that cast on my right foot while I was driving.
Oh my gosh.
Then I went to the doctor the next day, but like like it
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, talking about your painful periods, like what you said, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like what painful in what way? Like what happened with that?
So I never really got an answer. I got an
Hmm.
IUD, which I know is not the right way to do things, but
I mean, I'm not here to say what's right or wrong or anything like that. Like I literally don't judge. If you figured out a way to help your pain, then good for you.
yeah,
Really.
I mean, like it wasn't consistent.
Hmm.
It would be about every 3 months I would get a period that was so painful and like so bloody that it would I everything would come out both ends. Um
Oh,
Trying to be nice about how I say
yeah.
that. Because it just couldn't there wasn't enough space for whatever was going on there. So I would
Yeah.
like even like the thinnest underwear would feel like too much pressure on my stomach. Like it would be too
Yeah.
much pain. And so I like everything would come out. I would have to lie down for a few hours and then I would be a functional exhausted.
Yeah.
Right? Because like it drains you. Pain is draining.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that often enough. That it's
Hmm.
like it does take a lot of energy.
No, it's exhausting. I actually went I for the past I mean my whole life really. I've been exhausted, chronically exhausted, and I also have an iron deficiency, but like that has gotten a lot better. And most recently with my doctor for the past like year, I've been like, but I'm still exhausted. Like something else is wrong because I shouldn't be this tired all the time. Up until a year ago, all my doctors would just be like, oh, it's college and it's grad school and you're working all the time and that's tiring and da 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 da. And I'd be like, okay, fine, fine. But now that I'm, just working, like I'm living a normal life, I'm like, I shouldn't have to sleep 10 to 12 hours every night and still feel tired.
Mhm.
And then finally I'm seeing a naturopathic doctor right now, and she was like, you do realize that being in chronic pain is tiring, right? And I was like, oh. You mean this is probably just a symptom from endo? And she was like, yeah, yeah. I think that's probably what's going on. Like you're in chronic pain all the time. That is very tiring on your body. And I don't know why, like in my brain, I just like didn't I was like, something else is wrong. I have like deficiencies or something. And she's like, no, I think you're just tired.
And it's like, why don't these things like I was on vitamin D for a year before someone told me it was fat soluble. Why didn't anyone tell me that? You know what I mean? Like there's so much like basic information that we're
Mhm.
just not it's not shared.
Why are you seeing a physical therapist right now? What's going
Oh, the ankles.
The ankles still? Okay.
Yeah, the ankles because then I healed mostly from my so I re-injured that left after that really horrible blowout.
Yeah.
I kept on re-injuring it every like 6 weeks to 3 months and
Ugh,
following what the doctor told me, right? Like I did physical
yeah.
therapy initially. Um, I was going to see the orthopedic surgeon. Like I did all of these things in a year and I was like, I need an MRI because like what is going on? And like,
Hmm.
and I actually started injuring other parts of my ankle too, because cherry on the cake. But and so that's when I started like looking at other things as well,
Hmm.
like in terms of like acupuncture and like I went and saw a naturopath and I just
Yeah.
like because I was like I listening to the doctor is only getting me so far. I need to figure out something else. So yeah, so right now I should be doing more physical therapy, but I actually started Pilates because I have my calves have atrophied to the point where they aren't strong enough to hold up my but they're also getting knots. too.
Yeah.
I have like knots in my calves, which are like the most painful thing to like undo. Like it's crazy. So I
Yeah.
need to do some sort of strengthening so I don't injure myself. I also need to take it easy so I don't injure myself. It's like this like crazy push and pull. It's so
Hmm.
frustrating. So yeah, and like I get different answers on like, should I be doing physical therapy? Should I not? And so I'm just like doing things that feel safe in my body, which has been a really hard thing to learn.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, Pilates is great. It's low impact. I I feel like that is kind of one of the only exercises or type of exercising that actually doesn't make me have endo flare-ups. I want to be a runner so bad, but oh my God, does running make me hurt? Like it somehow, something with running just like causes my adhesions to do something. I don't know really the
Like the
science.
motion or
Yeah,
something.
I
Yeah.
have no idea, but I've tried out like different exercises and only done like those things to try to I've really this whole year really I've been kind of in like a isolating type mood. So I'm like, okay, what things make me feel good and what things make me feel bad? Because I for so long have just felt like I'm not in control of my endometriosis at all. Like endo is controlling me and I'm like, no, like I can control this. So I really want to be a runner. It hurts me though. I don't know what it is about it. Even like light jogging.
Mhm.
Like I can go on walks, but the second I'm like speed walking, it hurts. And I'm like, what is going It's so frustrating. So I
Yeah.
found that Pilates, as long as the second I start doing like high intensity like cardio Pilates, because they
Mm.
have a lot of that on YouTube, that's bad too. So
Yeah.
low
Yeah. I feel like it's something
impact
about the shaking. Yeah. I know
something.
this is like my life. I have like cut out all of my fun expenses. And I'm like between spending the money to bootstrap my company and like taking care of my health, like that is where it's gone. So I have to do private classes because the amount of modifications that she is doing just so that I can do it is insane. Like we had to modify
Yeah.
basically every exercise because I was like, oh, my neck is a problem here, my wrists are a problem there, my ankle, like it's just insane and
Yeah.
so frustrating and so expensive.
Yeah. I mean, all of that can get so expensive too, which means a whole nother topic. But
Yeah.
um, so how have these like chronic pain injuries impacted like your everyday life, your personal life, your professional life? How does that impact you?
Yeah. I mean, back before I got my IUD, um,
Hmm.
although I actually have a really good horror story about toxic workplace with my IUD. We'll get back to that. I remember I like the cramps when they would come on when I would have those really awful periods. Like I couldn't,
Yeah.
it would happen and it wasn't like super predictable. And the tracking
Hmm.
apps back then weren't as good as they are now, too. But
Yeah.
like now my tracking app I use Clue, which I really like, and that's pretty like on point.
Ooh, okay.
Clue also has a really good amount of scientific information and blocks. So just side note,
Yeah,
really.
I'm gonna have to look that one up. I haven't heard of that one. I have been trying to find a good tracking app. The problem with me is that it's hard for me to even figure out like when things are happening. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They're out of Germany, so they're, a little more structured, which I like.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I remember once it came on so quick and so fast that I was like out of it and like my coworkers could tell and my coworker lent me the keys to his car so I could just pass out in his car
Oh,
because I could just barely make it because he's like, "Can you get home?" And I'm like, "I don't think I can get home in my current condition." Like I didn't
mm-hmm.
think I could like even take like a cab home and walk
Yeah.
up 2 sets of stairs. Like it's just too much pain. So like, and this is I remember like passing out in the bathroom of like when I was a waitress in college, like because like
Yeah.
I couldn't move. So like yeah, and it would be a day every 90 days ish that would happen. Or like as a different example, I had a friend who was 8 months pregnant and something was
Mm-hmm.
leaking. And so she was like, let's go to the hospital. I happened to be with her. I'm like, okay, I'll go with you. Standing beside her, actually,
Mm-hmm.
that I think was ovarian cysts, um, but that's a whole nother conversation because those don't
Yeah.
get diagnosed. Yay.
I
Uh,
know.
but like the nurse looks at me, she's like, "Are you okay?" My friend's lying on the bed, 8 months pregnant, and the nurse is looking at me. Like,
Yeah.
close. And then I went home and slept for 3 days straight. But like,
Oh my gosh. That sounds terrible. I'm curious. I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to diagnose you, but I have like a bunch of ideas on what that could have been and what that is. But I'm really happy that the IUD seemed to have helped you. Yeah.
yeah, the insertion was not great, although I do have a
Yeah.
trick and people can message me about that in terms of like what to take that might help.
Mm.
Um, the the first time it was horrible. The second time they tried, she took the first one out and tried it without anything, and she was like, "You, if I keep trying, I'm going to permanently like scar your uterus."
Oh,
And so she sent me to get a prescription for the next time and like a couple of maxi pads. And I remember standing in line at the pharmacy and just like could barely stand up straight because I was in so much pain from her trying to insert it. And I bled through 2 maxi pads that night, like just from like whatever she was trying to do. And I'm like, I don't know why
yeah.
she kept going. Like, I don't know why. But then when I came back and I did all of the things, it went in so smoothly that they needed to do an internal ultrasound just to make sure
Yeah.
that it was in place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm interested on like what medication she gave you because I'm on my third IUD and they've all been horrible.
I
Insertions.
the
Horrible.
insertion's horrible, and the first one was like a couple of months of adjustment. And like, if my
Mm-hmm.
bowels were too full, I would be cramping. If I took, excuse my French, but like if I took a big one in the morning, I would be
Mm-hmm.
cramping for an hour after,
Mm-hmm.
like clockwork. Like this
Yeah.
was like a normal thing. Like, okay, every morning I'm just gonna be cramping, right? Like,
Yeah.
you wear too
Ouch.
tight of pants on a plane and you're sitting for too many hours, cramps. Or
Yeah.
go to the bathroom often enough, cramps. Like, it got better over time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also what I've adjusted over time is my stress levels. So I think overall my inflammation has gone down too.
Yeah. I mean that can be game changing. That's hard though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I also wanted to ask about, okay, this is kind of a loaded question, but so it seems like you were talking about your past and you've had quite a few things happening. How have these led you to creating Saha? I mean, it sounds like your experiences probably led you to that.
Yeah. So I realized that through my experiences and through the fact that like I've been building software for so long, and like I'm
Yeah.
also obsessively like, we talked about this. I just collect information. And so like,
Mm-hmm.
and I put things together in ways that like when I explain it, it makes sense, but people wouldn't have made those connections otherwise. And so
Mm-hmm.
I realized like I can do that for people. Like, I can make those connections and like work with developers to create an algorithm that makes those connections to make it easy. I
Mm-hmm.
think part of what I realized is I wasn't doing I there was nowhere to turn for to get someone to help me, because I think
Yeah.
information is a different thing. Like, we can, there's tons of information out there, but it's also really overwhelming. And
Yeah,
it's
it is.
confusing. Like, I do read a lot of PubMed articles, but it's piecemeal and you have to dive into it and it might not be the right thing. And then you look at like the audience size for some of these studies and you're like, okay, 100 people, is that like enough to make decisions about my life? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
not to down small studies, but like, it's hard.
No, but I have a quick comment. So that is so important too, because I also read PubMed articles all the time, and I just read scholarly articles all the time. And a lot of nutrition and like endometriosis, PCOS research, the sample sizes are so small, which again, it's not horrible, but
Okay.
as for somebody like I have a master's in science and like that's like one of the biggest things that not one of the biggest, but a big thing you talk about is kind of just being able to figure out what like is that sample size big enough to
Yeah.
actually get a result? I mean, typically you want it to be larger the better. So when you're looking at, I don't know, are avocados good for you? Like that kind of study. And the sample size is 15. What? Then I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. Are avocados really good for me? Like that is very confusing. So, and then also, Oh my God, what was the statistics that I read the other day? It was about like how I've been looking into a lot of like food and nutrition recently, but it was about how like women were not even included in these studies until
Oh,
up and I can't remember the exact date, so I'll put it in the show notes. But
I
that,
think it's the early 2000s. It's like
yeah,
something way later than it should be.
yeah, it's
Yes.
something, it's definitely something way later than it should be. I was like stunned by that. So I definitely, for anyone listening, I'll put it in the show notes and you can go look at that.
I
And I'll link that source. But
You're talking about nutritional studies, but I'm thinking about studies I've heard with like pain medication that often are only or were only, I can't speak to today, but like historically were
mhm.
only studied on men and then prescribed to women.
Oh, yes, yes. I've
And there's
also
like
heard
there's a
about things
whole
like that.
fascinating history with that. Like
Hmm.
it's so frustrating. And then we're like, then you add like multiple layers of pharmaceuticals and different
Hmm.
types of underlying conditions, and like those aren't studied, but they are prescribed. I get it; it's better than nothing, and we get what we have, and we're appreciative
Hmm.
that it even exists. Which, to your point about the smaller studies, like maybe that's all they had the funding for, and I appreciate that they did the study. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
I mean, one study is better than none, but it's just, it's so frustrating when you are trying to do the research and you're trying to understand things and you're trying to figure out like, is this a good path for me or is this a good path for me? And you just don't even really know if the science is good.
yeah, it's
So,
so frustrating. Like so for me, like I didn't know I was hypermobile until like less than a year ago.
mhm.
Right, and this was just me doing research, and like there is a, I can't remember what, there is like a way to self-diagnose hypermobility,
Yeah.
and that I think it recently changed too, but anyways, so like, but that's like a, you can do the research on your own and that's relatively straightforward. But
Hmm.
why did I not know that existed, and why did no one bring it up to me after injuring myself so many times?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and nobody told me that vitamin D deficiencies and soft tissue injuries are like hand in hand, right? There
Yeah.
were so many things that like didn't come up. And so when I started doing this research, I literally, I mean, I can send it to you, but for fun, because this,
Hmm.
I did a presentation on the relationship between dopamine, um, ADHD, uh, in relation to vitamin deficiencies, proprioception, hypermobility. And I like create like how those all things are all
Oh,
like connected. Uh,
yeah.
because when I started digging into it, I was like, oh, but this and this. And it was just so cool to, oh, sorry. And I
Hmm.
should say not just ADHD, but neurodiversity as a whole. And it was just
Yeah.
fascinating to understand the links between them from a high level. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. That's very interesting. I know once you start looking into things, you're like, oh, there's so many links between all of these things. I can't remember what I asked you something, but I don't remember
Uh,
what it was now because
like
we went.
how did my like health history relate to the company, I think.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, so I think like with all of that kind of combined, right? Like my
Hmm.
love for like diving into obvious rabbit holes. Uh, and then like being able to explain something to people in ways that like are really easy to understand. Because like someone told me once that like it's easy to explain something complicated in a complicated way. It's hard to explain something complicated in a simple way.
Yeah.
And that is where I find my sweet spot is like explaining complicated things in a really simple way that people understand and then they can take and interpret. And so between that and then learning on a high level, and I know there's so much more for me to learn, but what
Yeah.
like how different modalities and different things connect to different ways. Like you were talking about stress and inflammation and how that is attached.
Hmm.
Like I didn't know about that until about a year ago. Um, and understanding those pieces, there is a way to very carefully and programmatically attempt to do recommendations based on it. When I say
Yeah.
attempt, I mean I know it won't be perfect and we're going to try our best and we want all of the feedback anyone is willing to offer.
Hmm.
But it's better than what we have today.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Okay. I'm not going to go there. I had things, but I'm not going to.
You sure? We can talk about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's fine. I don't want to, I try really, really hard to not, I try really hard to be an optimistic person. So I don't want to, I have just things about being a woman, but
Oh yeah, that's a
I don't want to go into hating the patriarchy too much on the podcast.
fair,
Um,
fair.
yeah. So I know earlier you talked a little bit about burnout. I know you mentioned burnout. So did I mean, I feel like we all go through burnout at some point in our lives, right? Um, did you have a significant experience with that in your career?
Unfortunately, yes. Sorry, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Yeah, it was so like I've always been like I'm an eldest daughter, a child of
Hmm.
immigrant parents. Um First one to go to university. Like
Hmm.
my mom quit university to be a refugee, right? Like so this was
Yeah.
like a big deal for me to go to university out of my siblings.
Yeah.
I'm the only one who
That's
went, and then
amazing.
thank you. And so then to create a career out of that is like a big deal. And so there's this expectation on top of, taking care of everyone around you to
Hmm.
like succeed and to do well. And so I learned that after the burnout experience, that I'm very hyper vigilant. What hypervigilance meant in my case was I'm always looking around the room and paying attention to everyone's emotions and how they're doing and how I can help them better, which like
Hmm.
makes you a great host, for example,
Yeah.
like initially can be a very good thing as an employee, but it means you don't have boundaries and you don't listen to your body and you don't check in and see like when you're exhausted. So you tend to push yourself much, much farther than you should. And I did.
Hmm.
I did because I had my boss basically put like a promotion and my status of living in the US on a carrot on a stick and was like, if you do this and this. And I literally remember telling him, if you give me these two clients, which were very high maintenance clients, I will burn out. And a year and a half later, I did.
Hmm.
And that burnout experience, everyone's looks very different. But for me, what it
Yeah.
looked like is so, like I was saying, I was very high achieving. I couldn't like, work and work late and really, I enjoy being productive, like, and research and whatnot, like I do.
Yeah.
But I could no longer write emails. I could barely get on conference calls, which I can do with like my eyes closed and like, run meetings. I couldn't
Yeah.
create any sort of documentation. Like it was super difficult. And towards the end, I didn't have the energy to like clean my kitchen counters.
Oh.
I didn't like eat, like cook for myself. It would be like a bag of chips kind of dinner.
Hmm.
Like I had a friend visit me and she wiped down and organized the kitchen counters and I cried because
Yeah.
that's how trained I was. And she's like, you need to get out of your job. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yes, I did. Oh, and on top of that, I ruined my teeth from grinding during the day because I had a mouth guard. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. You and I are very similar. I also am the oldest daughter and definitely struggle from feeling like I need to overachieve and, do all these things. And it's so funny too because I like tell my mom, like now I'm 26 and I like talk to my mom about this and she's like, "Why do you feel that way though? Like I never like you don't have you're fine. Anything you do is great." And I'm like, "I know." And it's crazy too because I'm like it's probably not even like it's not your fault. It's
Mhm.
just something that happens with oldest daughters. I don't know, but every single one of them that I talk to, I'm like, yeah, we are one and the same.
Yeah.
So, how did you recover from burnout? What were some things that you did?
Slowly. I think it took the better part of almost 3 years.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, to get to where I am today, which is
Hmm.
is a lot. And funnily enough, actually a lot of it had to do with vitamin deficiencies, which I didn't figure out until my ankle injuries. But I have a really good community. And so I had friends visit, I had friends stay. They would like check and make sure, I like ate something,
Yeah.
stretched, moved a little bit. That I took care of myself. I had lots of friends, even virtually checking in on me, making sure that like, I was okay. I had a friend send me like an Uber Eats like gift card, which was like the
Aw.
kindest thing, like
Yeah.
just things that really help and just taking it slow and I think one of the biggest things that I tell anyone is like being kind to yourself and listening to your body. So if
Yeah.
you need a nap, you take a nap and you don't beat yourself up for not because it starts to slowly change how your brain thinks and you are like it's not to say you shouldn't push yourself but you shouldn't push yourself past your limits and I think that's what was hard for me was figuring out where those limits were um
Yeah.
so it and learning those limits so those are like all of that combined started to get better. but naps.
Yeah, I think that yeah, naps are important. It's rough for me because I like can't turn my brain off. Like I go to take it, I'm tired and then I go to take a nap and I'm like, I have it's so bad too because I'll be like, "Oh, I know there's dishes in the sink." And I like can't sleep because I'm like there's my brain is just like a constant to-do list of things to do. And I'm like, I really need to get that under control because I should be able to go to sleep without having everything done, but for some reason I just like can't and it's been definitely getting worse over the past couple of months. I'm like, okay, I'm exhausted. But then you also, and I have ADHD, so I feel like that is also like part of that
Mm.
is I just can't. It was the same thing in school. Like if I was studying and I knew that, I had laundry to get done or I had dishes or I had other things going on, I couldn't sit down and study until I got those other things done. So then if I seriously had to like focus and I couldn't get those things done, I would like have to go to a coffee shop because at least like then it wasn't in my head anymore because it wasn't there. So that is a whole other thing that I'm still trying to figure out how to handle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard. It's so hard. And I feel like we all have like the thing, right? Like, and insomnia, I feel like in so many ways, it's about your brain. Like, of course, there's some other physical things, but your brain is,
Hmm.
the way one doctor put it that I really liked is your brain is an organ, treat it that way. Like,
Oh
if you're,
yeah.
like, think of other parts of your body, you have something going on with your kidneys, you take care of it. Why don't we do the same with our brain, right? There's just a lot
Yeah.
of sickness around it. So that was, I don't know, it just felt like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, let me take care of it. Whatever that looks like for you. I
Hmm.
recently started listening to like sound bowl recordings in my headphones and just lying down.
Hmm.
So like not telling myself I'm gonna sleep, but lie down for like 10 minutes and something about it, like when I'm in like an anxious, like spinning mess, that
Hmm.
helps.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah, I mean, even when I'm tired and I can't nap, I'll still just like lay there. But I like don't let myself go on my phone because at least then like I am kind of still taking a brain break, even if my brain is like still making a to-do list. It's at least not getting like input from the internet.
Yeah, it can help.
That can help for sure. So how how are you avoiding burnout now that you are a business owner? Because I know that that is a whole nother ball game and can definitely be difficult.
I'm still working a full-time job too. So right now,
Oh,
yeah. Uh, so with a lot of boundaries, I would say,
hmm.
a lot of understanding of, okay, this is where my energy levels are. Like last night we were, someone made dinner for me and my mom. And so we went and it was getting late. And obviously this person still wanted to keep chatting, but I was
Hmm.
tired. And so
Hmm.
I got up and said, "How can I help you clean up?" And I like instigated and it kept going. And I would have never done that previously. The people pleaser in me would have like made
Hmm.
sure to like take care of everyone, right? And now it's just like I put myself first and I'm very kind and sweet and I explain why I'm doing what I'm
Yeah.
doing, but I make a point of doing that. And it's amazing how much the people in your life respect that and are
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're taking care of yourself. Like, okay, you need a nap, you need to be quiet for an hour. I can do that." And like
Hmm.
really there is very little resistance and I would have never anticipated that. So it's just like really listening to your body and understanding like I push myself too hard, I need a nap, I need to do this, I need to cancel plans, whatever it is, or like not being hard on yourself for not completing that task. And like if you feel like you still need to work, switching to something else that is like less brain heavy, like
Yeah.
to fix 3 spelling mistakes, maybe today's not the day to write, right? Like
Yeah.
can you do something else?
Yeah. I love that. I feel like really for burnout, boundaries are just a huge thing that you have to figure out how to create and how to like come to terms with that and making sure that you are not pushing past those limits and boundaries, which is a learning process. It's not an easy thing to do, but a lot easier said than done. Kind of before we wrap up, I did want to ask you a little bit more about Saha. We already did kind of talk about the future plans, but I want to know immediate future, kind of what is the first? You said that there's a wait list right now.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
so I really encourage people to sign up for the wait list. So I think there's a couple of
Mm-hmm.
things that are really important with wait lists that like people don't really think about. And I
Okay.
didn't think about till I started doing research. So we all know that like social media algorithms change all the time. You all have like friends who are small business owners who are like, oh my goodness, I can't reach people. Like things have changed. Wait lists or email lists are something that people can control in the sense of
Mm-hmm.
like you will get that email. It's not like you won't see that Instagram post because all of a sudden something else is getting pushed, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's really important. Like if this is something that you are interested in, I would say sign up because like I will do my best to be present on social media, but I can't control,
Mm-hmm.
what changes on the algorithms. Maybe I don't pick the right audio one week and so it's not a viral
Yeah.
situation. Like I
Yeah.
don't know. So yeah, so there's a wait list going on right now. We're finalizing the basic functionality and then there will be focus groups. So we'll get people on the phone and get their feedback on how it looks and feels. Then we go into development.
Mm-hmm.
Development is like renovations. It takes longer than you ever think it will. My fingers crossed. My goal is to be live the end of the year. And then we would like launch with like those smaller cohorts and
Mm-hmm.
test and get feedback from people and then go kind of from there. So that's like the immediate 6-month-ish term, if you will.
Okay. Yeah, beautiful. So in the meantime, people can sign up for the wait list.
Yes, people can sign up for the waitlist and then follow us on social media, give us feedback in any form. You can
Mm-hmm.
email us at info@sahacollective.com.
Where can people find you in general? So I will also link that email and wherever people can find you, but if you want to say too.
Yeah, happy to. So the website is sahacollective.com. And then on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, it's saha.collective. And then we are on LinkedIn and Facebook, but like not actively posting right now. Although I today, like I brought on a scientific advisor. So she's going to be like pulling up a lot of stuff and posting more on LinkedIn.
Oh my gosh, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Very, very exciting. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we wrap up?
I keep People are always like interested in the business and how it works, but something
Mhm.
really, really important to me that I wanted to mention is so this is a like a per transaction, if you will, there's going to be a fee, right? And then a portion of the proceeds from that
Mhm.
fee are going towards a fund.
Mhm.
We're calling it the SAHA fund. That is available to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford services. So I wanted to bring that up as like that's something really at its core
Yeah.
important to me that it should be accessible to people even if they can't. And by using the service, you are contributing to that. I mean, you can outright contribute if you want, but like you're contributing to
Mhm.
that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That I love that. That is so important. I think that that is going to help a lot of people that really need help. So
Yeah.
that's a great idea. Yeah, I really love that.
Yeah. And it's just something like people don't think to ask because why would they? How would you know? So I want to make sure I say it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely make sure you tell everybody about that because I feel like people will love that with you don't even realize that you're contributing. So,
Yeah, and like what else can you do for yourself that also contributes to other people, right?
yeah,
It's like such a core part of it. And like for me, it's also important. I can talk about this for ages, but that providers are paid for their services too.
everybody wants to help everybody all the time. And I feel like that is just such an easy way
Yeah.
to help yourself, help providers, help other people. I love that. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You have been great.
Thank you for having me. I'm so sorry we got derailed with my, period pains.
No, I love it. Talk about it. Yeah, I'm glad that you felt or are feeling some relief from the IUD. And I mean, I have an IUD right now. It definitely helps with the heaviness of the
Mhm.
period. But yeah, totally love it. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really excited for Saha to officially come out. But yeah, in the meantime, I mean, I'm on the wait list, so we'll see.
Thank you for being part of the party.
That wraps up another episode of the Chronic Chronicles. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. If you found value in the episode, please consider subscribing to the podcast, leaving a review, sharing the podcast with somebody who you think might benefit. Every bit of support helps us continue to bring stories and conversations that matter to you. For more information and resources, check out the show notes where you'll find links to connect. Also, if you want to connect more with me, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Chronic Chronicles Pod. You can also always email me at thechronicchroniclespod@gmail.com. Though every single podcast is uploaded to YouTube, and I will leave a link in the show notes as well. All the YouTube videos have video with them. Until next time, remember, living with a chronic condition doesn't mean that you're alone. I'm here to walk this journey with you one story at a time. Stay strong, stay informed, and keep advocating for your health. Talk to you later.